Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Evan, welcome to Lawyers Who Learn. Really excited to dive into your career and some of the things you're working on right now in Gen AI. So thanks for taking time.
My pleasure. Looking forward to chatting.
This is my take two, just to be honest, but your title is Chief Knowledge and Innovation Officer at Fisher Phillips, and you've been there for 5 years, correct? What's interesting is you started your career in employment litigation, and a recent interview that I did, and I saw you were actually on a panel with her, was with Nikki Schaefer. Also started her career as a practicing attorney and then switched to knowledge management. So I wonder if is that a common theme or not? And so we'll dive into a little bit of your transformation, but I also want to get into and start with the study that you were just one of two firms that were reviewed in by the University of Oxford about how lawyers use Gen AI and prompt engineering. And so I'm going to get into that. But before I even get into that, one thing that really interested me as I was going through your posts and reading about the background of what you guys have done at Fisher Phillips is you were, correct me if I'm wrong, the first firm to be the testing case for Co-Counsel when Casetext originally launched it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And it was a great project, a great opportunity, and yeah, happy to chat about it.
So the reason I think it's interesting is I just actually did a post today and I did two other interviews recently. One was SkillBurst. Are you familiar with them?
I am. Yep.
And then one with InfoDash. Okay, awesome. So that was with Stephen Gluckman and Ted Theodopoulos. Yeah, two awesome guys. And when I was talking to them, it was actually from the other side of the table. They both shared how they were launching new products and how the only way they would actually move forward and launch it if they got a partner law firm to buy on to actually help essentially pay for it as they launched it. So now it's exciting to me as I'm talking to you, the partner law firm who decided to move forward with Co-Counsel. So I'd love to just take me through what is Co-Counsel, just in case.
Sure.
And obviously they've been bought, but take us through what year it was in the conversation of what happened and to get you started in testing that out.
Sure. And this, by the way, is a model that I 100% stand behind in terms of working with startups and being a law firm to help startups almost serve as an incubator for them, an R&D function for them, and so on. And the people at Casetext I've known for years and years. We actually, at my prior firm, we were one of the first 3 or 4 customers of their very first product, which was called Cara. And it was like the computer automated research assistant or something along those lines. But essentially, you can upload a brief into it. It would use very rudimentary, by today's standards, AI to review the brief or the document and let you know what cases were not in there, but were similarly related to the cases that you cited in your brief or the other side. That was a cool product. But what I really like in all of these relationships is I trusted the team. They were great people building that product. We had a great time testing it out, using it. And over the years, when the folks at Casetext had other products they were working on, they'd reach out to me and say, we would love for your thoughts on this. We'd love for you to try it out, to test it out, to tell us what you think. And that was a role that I think I was well suited for because I'm curious. I enjoy trying these things and testing them out, seeing if they're terrific, if they're horrible, if they're somewhere in between. And over the years, I've made some fantastic relationships with really smart people that decide to start legal tech companies, build out tools that are powered by data analytics or AI or Gen AI or whatever. So we helped maybe...
Can we just pause there for one second? Because I think this podcast is called Lawyers Who Learn. It's about how you learn and grow. And it goes to two areas based on the interviews that I've done and what I'm passionate about, towards lawyers and learning and growing their career, which we'll focus on here, as well as like legal tech companies who are learning and adapting to sell to law firms. So in this moment, what can a legal tech company do to mimic what Casetext did with you? Was it completely free? Did they give you any kind of promotional value besides just a good relationship? And because you're busy, you get vendors calling you all the time to test. Like you can have 10 people, oh, please test this out. You don't have all the time in the world to test things out.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I'm not going to specifically talk to the terms of that relationship, but I'll talk about them in general, because at this point now I've been involved in in almost a dozen similar relationships since Co-Counsel. Some of them are you're a paid customer, but with benefits. Those benefits might include super early access, the ability to make suggestions that the startup or the vendor will actually take to heart and implement. So at the end of the day, it is a product that is much more well suited to the workflow for your attorneys because we were the ones that helped give advice and say, hey, could you tweak it like this? Could you add this? This is something that we would really love. Can you build that out? And they'll say, yes, of course, because we're serving as an R&D for them. Generally speaking, there's a great opportunity from a price standpoint. If you're the very first customer before it's even a product, you're typically not going to pay what it will ultimately sell for when it becomes a real product that's commercially available. Working with these startups is terrific because you're now their best friend forever. You were the first company that was willing to give them a chance to help them to make it a viable product. Then when they become successful, who do they turn to for their next really cool product and their next great opportunity but us? All of that's great because in today's day and age, law firms want to be seen as innovative. Innovation really matters. Innovation is important to our clients, and innovation is important to companies deciding who to give their legal work to. And if you can demonstrate that you're doing things that no other law firms are doing, that is a really great differentiator when you're trying to get business from a big company. And I could give anecdotes on that. But so when we have an opportunity to work with folks like Casetext to help them build Co-Counsel and then be announced as the very first law firm to deploy Co-Counsel, it was on the Morning Joe on live TV, that announcement. Legal tech never used to be in that space, but now it is. When your firm is the firm that is tied to a fantastic horse like that, couldn't be in a better place at a time when clients value innovation more than they ever did before. There's a whole host of benefits. Yes, we're busy. I had to grow my team because we have so many products that we're piloting, that we're design partners for, that we're incorporating, that we're providing advice to these startups. And there's a whole roster of them now. Some companies, there's other financial arrangements that are beneficial to the firm to help them, whether it's equity stake or otherwise, to help these startups get everything they need from my firm and a benefit to us as well. There are a whole host of fantastic opportunities for both the law firm and the startup. But at the end of the day, it's a total win-win because what do they need? They need to have actual real life attorneys testing out their products and saying, are they good? How could they be made better? How could they be made perfect? And if we could offer that, and they don't have that, right? They're a startup of a couple of really smart people and a great idea, but they don't have test cases. If we could be those test cases, of course, they're going to give us an exceptional opportunity with all the things that help us as a law firm to make that something that is beneficial to them and beneficial to us.
And to some degree, that's the pain point that Nikki Schaefer is trying to do with Legal Tech Hub to help facilitate those two relationships. Because without that, right, which is relatively new, I assume it's at conferences, cold emails, relationships, but there's a lot of inbound to you and your team to sift through.
Yep. And that's another thing that we can certainly offer to startups. And again, I can't say yes to every legal tech startup because we all have our other day jobs with actual firm projects and so on, things that are under my control. But if we find products that we believe in and we can champion them and we can go and talk about them and help evangelize them because we've had a really great experience and we could do white papers and so on, it's tremendously valuable for the legal tech startup to have well-regarded firms vouching for their product, especially for startups, right? The big, huge companies don't need that, right? Everyone knows them. They know the names, it's brand recognition and so on. But startups really need folks like us who are willing to help them make those products successful and then go to bat for them, frankly.
What would be the three things that you say is most important? Is it is it like saying we're not going to charge? Because there's that focus on if you don't charge, then there's no value. And there's somewhere in between. And then second, obviously there has to be a product market fit. There has to be a real pain point they're helping you solve to the minimum. And then third is how developed does it have to be? Because usually these are not fully developed. If not, they would not be to test it out.
I think that depends on a number of things, including the firm's appetite, the firm's resources, and what the firm is looking to get out of this. If the firm is just looking at a particular pain point and they found a vendor that can meet that pain point, then it's a different scenario. Then and also there are a lot of things at play here. So I'm trying to put them all in some sort of cohesive way to say it.
I apologize for giving you a 3-point question.
No, you're great. There are some vendors, sometimes these are free pilots, sometimes these are paid, sometimes we're getting a subscription at a certain deeply discounted rate, sometimes it's more closer to what the actual subscription is. And it depends on the level of assistance we're going to be providing. It depends on how closely this product meets our particular firm's needs. Some of these we just would love to help. We think this company has a fantastic idea. We'd love to help them be successful in implementing it because we think at the end of the day, it'll be better for our clients or for our attorneys or for the practice of law in general. And we would just love to be a part of it and help them out. Others, we know this is going to be exceptionally valuable for our attorneys to have access to this tool before any other attorneys in the world have access to it, right? So if we could make sure that by getting in on the ground floor, that our attorneys will have access to something like case text, for instance. We started playing with case text and using case text within our firm in October of 2022, which is before ChatGPT was even deployed. So before anyone in the world knew that there was something called Gen AI, we already were using Gen AI to help us conduct legal research and summarizing and drafting and extracting and so on. And getting your attorneys earlier access to these tools and a facility in using these tools before anyone else gives your firm an immediate competitive advantage. Because once ChatGPT came out, we already knew how to use it, how to implement it, how to prompt engineer, what to be worried about, what to not be worried about, what it's good at, what it's not good at. And every time you're willing to push the envelope a little bit in order to get early access to new revolutionary technology, from my perspective, you take that opportunity, provided that you can use it and deploy it responsibly and appropriately, and that security is taken care of, and that your attorneys are trained on how to use it, not use it. It's always better, from my perspective, to get earlier access to something that's going to be disruptive than to be after the disruption curve.
Are you guys, Fisher Phillips is in one of two firms in this Oxford study. You were the first one to do co-counsel. You just mentioned 12 relationships since co-counsel you've done this with. Are you ahead of the curve? Is this norm for all big law firms? Or you're definitely in the industry, so you have a sense? Or do you feel that you guys are trending 5 steps ahead because of that is your vision and your focus, and you've just been doing this?
Yeah, no, that's, I'd like to think that we're first in the list of lots of firms who are trying to be innovative, just because that's something that's always driven me, because I've seen the value in it. I've seen the value in getting our attorneys access to these tools before anyone else, and that's a competitive advantage. I've seen the value in letting clients realize and appreciate that we're doing things that are innovative and more innovative than others. And I attend a lot of client pitches, meaning we're trying to get all of very large companies, labor and employment work across the country or so on. I'm in those pitches all the time because it's very important now to these clients to hear how our firm is innovative. One of the first questions they now ask is, tell us what you're doing in the tech space. How are you using AI? How are you using data analytics to be better at predicting outcomes and so on? So I come to those pitches and I talk about the things that we're doing and how we're different than other firms. And it happens time and time again. It happened about a month ago, twice in the same month, with 2 Fortune 50 companies where we were fortunate to get the work after a pitch that I attended. And they said, you guys have fantastic attorneys at your firm. Your competitors also have fantastic attorneys at their firms. But the reason we gave the work to you guys is because we're thrilled with what you're doing in the innovation space. We're thrilled with what you're doing with the AI and stuff. And I want to learn more about that, but I can't wait to work with you with that stuff going into the future. So we're actually at the point now, the legal profession is at the point where work is going to the firms that are early adopters and envelope pushers in the legal innovation space. And because of that, I have to think that it's all the steps that we're taking to be first with Co-Counsel, first with Trellis AI, first with Verbit, first with Hebbia. All of those things were conscious decisions I evaluate tons of these companies. I find ones that I think are fantastic, and then we're first to adopt them. And that's something that not only is the product great, and it means our attorneys have access to really great products that can do things that haven't been possible technology-wise before these companies came up with their products. But it also means that we can now talk to our clients and prospects to say, this is how our firm, this is baked into what our firm's culture is all about now. We're an innovative firm. We're doing things every day. We're doing things that no other firms are doing. And we could rattle off a list of these amazing startups that we're working with. And that's why I keep pushing to be super early adopters, among other reasons.
I'm like revved up from that just now. It really resonated with everything you said. Let me take it one step further. Sure, it's exciting for you to be early adopters, but what is the main goal that your potential clients are wanting to know? Yes, you're using all these things, but what do they want to know? How does it benefit them? What is the main thing they're asking about it?
They're asking for us to describe it, to explain how it's going to help us make better predictions, how it's going to make us more efficient, and how it's going to make us better lawyers. And I talked to them about all those points. To the extent that we're worried about fees. A lot of clients are worried about fees. Will this help with fees? Of course it will. It'll make us more efficient, but I tend to go past that pretty quickly because from my perspective, the more important thing is it helps us be better lawyers and more persuasive lawyers. Yes, we could do it more quickly, but sometimes the client will say, listen, I think this should take about 5 hours of work. Can you go in and find the answer to this question, dig as deep as you can? Wouldn't it be better if we could turn over 10 times as many stones in the same amount of time? Spend less time on cases that aren't relevant and more time digging deeper into the cases that are relevant, because AI can help get you to a certain point. Clients don't like to have to spend 10 hours to summarize a deposition transcript, right? There should be technology that helps with that. And there is. There's technology now that we're working with in the deposition space. Imagine a tool that can, and this is a tool that we're design partners, we're helping build this as well, a tool that could listen in on a deposition in real time and provide real-time insights that what David just testified about contradicts what he said in that prior deposition transcript. And take a look at this, right? Isn't that, it's not about saving money right there. It's just about making the lawyer a better lawyer in real time. And clients want us to be the best lawyers we can be in real time, giving them answers more quickly, giving better predictions, knowing more facts, being able to put your finger on that document in an instant versus in 15 minutes, or maybe never finding it because it was in some stack of 5,000 pages in binders with tabs. Isn't it better to just have a robot say, hey, I know what you're going to be looking for. Here it is. It's this document. And here's the line. I'm going to highlight it for you in real time at a deposition. That's what clients want. That's what's soon going to be the norm. And why don't you try to get access to that stuff before it's available to the mainstream?
Again, I'm still smiling ear to ear because what you're saying makes so much sense, because obviously where I was going towards was like, how is this going to save us more money? And where you switched it for is we're going to be better lawyers. And of course, depending on who your client is and what their budget is and how big of revenue they are, many times the difference between the bills, they still want to save as much money, but it's more about the results that they're trying to get. With that said,
you can get both. You can get both.
Of course,
you can get better results in less time. And that's a win all around. And then we get more work from the clients, right? And there are some things where the work would have never come to us because it would have been cost prohibitive. If you could show that you can do more things efficiently, you'll get more work. And at the end of the day, our attorneys are so much busier now than they were in the pre-Gen AI days. We have these tools. They're making us better at what we do, better at making predictions, more efficient, all of that. And we're busier than ever before. All of this is good for the law firms, provided that you have access to these tools, know how to use them appropriately, and use them as a starting point for what you're doing.
Okay. Couple things. We're going to hit them all. I just want to mention them just so we have them. Is you mentioned the deposition. I think that was with Verbit. I saw you did a post where you actually did a demo in their booth. Maybe we'll get to that. You talked about making it better attorneys. One of the things I actually saw Richard Susskind speak about this at the Legal Tech Fund Summit. I don't know if you were there in Miami.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah. Were you at that?
I was in the room with you, it seems.
Maybe we were next to each other. You were in the room where it happened. And so one of the things he said there was that it was not necessarily the senior partners who were going to have the issue. It was the junior associates, where clients are not going to be wanting paying $600 an hour for them to do doc review or e-discovery or just basic admin stuff, that now it's very clear that there's AI tools that will make that much more efficient. And then the third thing you said is training. So those are the three things we're going to cover besides all the other things I want to cover. But let's talk about that first thing with Richard Susskind. How does this affect the most junior attorneys and new associates in the firm when you talk about many things that probably could be more cost effective, especially e-discovery could, in a big litigation case, could be millions of dollars, and that's one example of where costs can potentially come down.
Yeah, my experience, at least at my firm, the associates now are busier than they ever were before. There is more for them to do, even when they're doing certain things more efficiently, thanks to Gen AI. There's still more work for them to do than they've had. There are piles of their email inboxes, their expectations from partners as to
different work.
It's different work. It's better. It's a higher level work, and it's probably more important work and less busy work. One thing to point out, we're a defense firm. We represent corporations in labor and employment disputes and workplace issues and immigration and benefits works, anything related to the workplace. But we do defense work. We're not the only ones that have these tools, right? Plaintiffs' counsel also have these tools. Plaintiffs' counsel used to be limited in the cases that they would file because they had to look at the case, they'd have an intake meeting with a client, and they say, I think I might have a blank percent chance of winning this case, and it's going to cost me this much money to defend it, and I have to draft the complaint, and I have to review the documents, and I'm only going to want to take 15 of them in this month because I just don't have the time. Maybe I'll say no to all of these. Now they're saying yes to more of them because they have these tools too. They could do things more efficiently. So we're having more lawsuits filed. We're having more state regulation on a lot of issues. There's more legal work to go around. Even if we can handle the grunt work, the more ministerial work more efficiently, thanks to Gen AI, there's a lot more of the other work now because it's easier for everyone on both sides of the V to handle their legal work more efficiently. So more cases being filed, more things for people to do, more laws to review. All of this means the associates are going to have plenty of work to do. We're not seeing a depreciation in the amount of time that they're spending on overall, but they're just being able to help more clients in the same amount of time or more projects for the clients. And we're getting more work from clients because they know that we can handle it more efficiently.
So what I'm hearing from you, what people are starting to bring up again and again, the billable hour is not going anywhere anytime soon, at least in big law. Is that a fair statement? Or are you trying to do
I think it depends. I think we've seen a whole bunch of alternative billing arrangements or just billing arrangements. They don't even have to be called alternative, just a whole bunch of billing arrangements that are different than the billable hour. A lot of clients still want to see lots of different scenarios. And at the end of the day, they say, let's just go with the billable hour for this because we know that and it's predictable or whatever, or it's just what they're used to. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think some clients are more receptive to billing arrangements. Other clients still want to go by a billable hour. I think they're more likely to go with a billable hour or to stick with a billable hour if it's a law firm that they trust and they know that's a law firm that's doing things responsibly and efficiently and has the right people on the matters and so on. Other times, though, they would like to say, hey, for this project, we think it's going to cost this much. What do you think? And for those types of projects, isn't it great for us to have better analytics and stats, and we can run reports in them to figure out what is the best case scenario where it's a win-win for the client and for the law firm?
Totally agree. Let's talk about training. You mentioned we started talking about case tax, but then you talked about 12 other products and just everything else that's going on. How are you training your teams? Let's take me through that. This is the meat of what, is the challenge, because it's not just about learning something. It's also change management. It's new behaviors. It's taking time to focus. It's the billable hour that you can't bill while you're training, but there's just a lot to that. And I think that might be one of the more challenging aspects. You can tell me it's one thing to find something. It's another thing to get people to actually use it and then use it more long-term.
Yeah. So what we've done, and for us, it was a little bit different because we've had so many of these different tools and also the timing, being that we deployed some of these tools before ChatGPT came out, that was a different approach. And then once ChatGPT came out, there was another approach. But we've had training on each of our individual tools. So before we deploy tools, we'll have training where the vendors do a lot of the training with us. They'll do the training and we'll be, folks like me and my team will be assisting with that. We also have done training on the general tools that are generally available, what they're good for from a...
What does training mean? Like what, because is it videos? Is it interactive sessions?
Yeah.
Is it like sitting down and reviewing, learning how to prompt? Is it a one-time thing? Is it over 8 weeks? Is it?
Yeah, all of the above. Training for the individual specific, for the tools. When we're rolling out tools, we'll offer training, multiple live sessions of training. And we have 650 or so attorneys and other folks in the firm. So it's a large group, but we'll offer live training sessions where we're demoing the tools, explaining what they're good at, how they could be used. The vendors will run with those, but we always are pushing the vendors to give actual discrete use cases. We then do periodic training where I'll be doing those trainings or a member of my team. We also have folks who join us that are experts on the general publicly available tools and how to use those tools just in every day-to-day life, because it's not just about how you could, those tools we're not going to be using for actual work product for obvious reasons, but we'd like our attorneys to have good facility on how Perplexity works and what it's all about, how Claude works and how ChatGPT works and what it's all about, just because it's something that they're facing that their clients need to know about and that their clients' employees need to know about. So we want to be very conversant there. So we do trainings periodically, live trainings. We just had 8 sessions that were mandatory at our partner retreat where I was giving my 10 favorite use cases for our firm's Gen AI tools that we've deployed and what they're good for. And it's not just, here's a tool, here's what it can do, it can summarize. We'll say, here's a tool, it can summarize, but before we even get there, let's say you've just been given a 70-page document. This is a document, you're sitting on a plane, and I'll make it very tangible, and I'll make it relatable, and I'll actually give actual use cases that our attorneys at our firm reported back that they were successful. And when we give those use cases to our attorneys, that's when it clicks. So if I say, for instance, we had an attorney who had a client where it was very important for the client for the attorney to go through thousands of emails. And they wanted to go through these emails and try to figure out whether the individual in question was a supervisor. There's a standard test for that. There's a 12-part test or whatever it is. Do they direct employees? Do they evaluate? Do they discipline? Do they blah, 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 assign work? So we were able to build a robot that was able to go through those emails in a matter of minutes to give us a great head start to say, here are 42 emails where they're obviously giving assignments. And nobody says, I am hereby assigning David this work. They say, hey, would you mind doing this for me? But these robots are good at saying, okay, here's an assignment email. Here's a discipline email. And it could do that busy work for you. When you give examples like that and say, that's the sort of thing that Gen AI is good for, that's when it clicks. And we've done a lot of training and we've had a lot of good usage in all of our tools, but we've never seen the response rate of people reaching out to us after that partner retreat saying, hey, I have the exact case for what you talked about. Can you get me set up on this? Can we use that tool? Show me how to do it when you give the use cases. So you have to do it thorough. You have to do it, often. You have to give actual use cases that resonate and click with the attorneys, and often has to be attorneys who can articulate that to other attorneys. So our trainers tend to be people who have been in the trenches before, like me. You have to do it frequently. You have to try to get as many times where you could actually do it live and in person. That's the best. Short of that, it's live remotely. We haven't done as many actual live workshops because those tend to be a little bit more challenging than what we've done. But train often, train live if you can, get people to show up at a lunchtime, get them lunch and have them talk and be interactive. Have other people say what their favorite use cases were. As long as you can get other people to be the champions of your tools, that's better than me being a champion. Lots of things go into it, but you're right. The change management, getting people to pay attention, to realize how good this stuff is a challenge. But once you do it, then they're hooked.
You mentioned earlier on you've had to grow a team. How big is your team now?
I think I'm up to about 15 people now, which includes the library and my CAM and innovation folks. A number of former practicing attorneys who report to me that are coming up with templates and samples and forms. They're leading pilots. They're doing the first pass evaluations of the startups that I just want to work with, testing it out, seeing if it's good, not good, whether it's worth getting our practicing attorneys involved. And then we have some technology folks. Our firm just hired its first director of AI to help us build some things that we can't just reach out to a vendor for various reasons. Either we can or we don't want to. We would like to build some things on our own. That's our own sort of proprietary stuff. So that's been exciting. We're working with him on some pretty cool stuff that hopefully we could talk about in a couple months. I'll come back and talk about that when I'm allowed to. But yeah, it's a growing team because all of this stuff, for all the reasons I mentioned at the beginning, it's super important for us to stay ahead of the curve on this stuff.
And also what you said in your last answer, people after their partners retreat, you're going to get a lot of emails and calls. We want this. Show me how to do this. Show me how to do this. And I can imagine you need dedicated people to do that because it's in the firm's best interest. This is not like basic IT, right? Setting up your computer. This is helping the firm, like you said, be better lawyers. And being better lawyers saves more money, makes the firm more. It's a win-win all. And
by the way, it also leads to more lateral attorneys wanting to come to our firm. And they come with their own clients and books of business. Yeah, please apply. And it prevents people from leaving the firm that have big books of business because they know that this is the place to be because we're doing cool stuff. And when their clients are sticking with us because of the innovation, it's hard for them to go to another firm that's not innovative. So it's wins all around.
Are you familiar with Lawline at all?
Yes.
So yeah, we unfortunately never practiced. So we've been doing continuing legal education for 25 years now. And we actually just launched an AI hub trying to build this out. Hotshot is, I don't know if you work with them. Ian's done a great job. PLI, I'm sure you guys, I don't know if that's who you work with. They've been working really hard on this. Have you, in the past year, we've done 100 hours of courses. Hotshot is doing some more dedicated stuff. Are you doing anything that's formal learning? Like that's not necessarily built from internal. That's not necessarily geared towards a product, but it's, here's a course. That's 7 parts that will help you do this or that. And you're making this group of attorneys do it, and then this group of attorneys do that?
Yeah, that falls under our professional development group, but we definitely are. We are subscribers to one or two of the ones that you've mentioned,
Yeah,
and our attorneys are using those often to get up to speed. And that's not CLE, like how can I understand the ADA law better? That's how can I be a better lawyer? How can I practice better? How can I understand
for
some
sure.
of the business of being a lawyer type stuff? And yeah, it's very valuable.
But I'm talking about for the AI content specifically.
For the AI content, I believe it's included in some of ours, but I think our attorneys have trended towards attending our content that we provide ourselves just
And
because we've been doing it a lot. But I do know that the other is available.
that's why I asked, because it's it's very, like you said, you have to build your own product sometimes. It's very use cases that are very specific to what you're doing.
Right.
It's very exciting, and you really transform my thinking, and I really appreciate it, because I've, up until this point, and again, I'm not in day-to-day practicing in knowledge management at Big Law. I've always been thinking about, from my perspective, of how can Gen AI save me, the client, more money, versus how can it help me have better attorneys get a quicker resolution, and definitely save me more money, but just focus on that. And I think it's a really important shift that maybe it's said a lot in your circles, but it's something that I think can continue to go forward. So that's probably will be the theme of this. So was it fun doing the Verbit demo at the booth? Is that worth even going into? Or it sounded cool. I was just curious.
Like, cool. No, I think it was great. I think I think there's a lot of vaporware out there, and there's a lot of people who, just because Gen AI is so exciting, a lot of people said, hey, there's a lot of money going into legal tech. I'm a legal tech company now too, and I'm going to create something, and it might not be fully baked, or it might not be as good as they say. Anytime a vendor says, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith, I'm going to demonstrate my tool, not a PowerPoint, not something with a script. I'm going to demonstrate my tool live in front of a lot of people and hope it works. I think it's a really cool thing, right? Because it shows that they stand by their product, and if it fails, if it's successful. So when I heard they were willing to, or wanted to go and put their product in person and do a live demo of it, I was happy to be deposed. I haven't been deposed ever before. Actually, I was deposed once in a case many years ago, but it was fun to do that in front of an audience and show that the technology actually works like they said it worked. So I was happy to do it.
I think it's a good segue to something we were talking about before it actually started, was how often you're traveling.
Yep.
And either it's to your firm's offices or to conferences. And to me, it goes to where are you learning? How are you keeping up to date? Is going to conferences like ITLA and other organizations like that a key component to your growth? And how, take us through that a little bit.
Yeah. I'm traveling all the time now, as you mentioned. I've probably traveled more. I've been more away from my home over the past 2 years than ever before in my career. And this past year, even more. Mostly it's to conferences where I'm presenting, or clients or prospects that I'm visiting with for pitches or otherwise, or to offices of my firm because we're working on projects. We have a lot of projects going on, and my team's all over the country. We have our administrative headquarters is in Atlanta. I'm there quite often, but typically I'm going various places to present at conferences, which I love to do. I learn more at the stage of my career where I am now. I learn more from interacting with other people at the conferences than I do from actual sessions, just because I'm usually speaking at the sessions, but I go there and I'll learn more at a cocktail hour or at a restaurant or just chatting with people in the hallway. And that's where I get a lot. If anyone in your audience are interested in legal tech, it's all a relationship business. The more people you know, they'll be able to tell you what products are good, not good, who to check out, who not to check out. Every day I'm reaching out to folks saying, hey, we've been trying this product in stealth. It's actually really good. I think you should check it out. And I got calls like that from my peers and other firms the same way. Building relationships with smart people, smart, good, friendly people who are willing to share. That's what the legal tech profession is, the knowledge management profession and the innovation profession. They're all people that, like Nikki, like me, we used to practice law for various reasons. We stopped practicing law, and often it was because being a lawyer, you're fighting all the time. You're paid to be nasty. Someone's paid to be nasty against you. You could maybe thrive in that environment, but after about 10 years, it gets tiring. And at least it did for me. And I moved into knowledge management, legal innovation. I've been doing that now for 14 years. I practiced law for 10 years. But the people like that came out of the practice and moved into innovation, knowledge management. They tend to be friendly people who want to help others. And there's a great group of us, and we teach each other all the time. I constantly am blown away by how many smart, friendly, helpful people there are in this profession. And we get information from each other all the time. Outside of that, there are podcasts I listen to. Nikki's site, I'm sure she talked all about Legal Tech Hub, but fantastic place to go to get information about legal tech providers and what they're good at and what they offer. Zach Abramowitz has a great podcast, Legally Disrupted. David Cowan has a great podcast, Career in the Business of Law. Just from a Gen AI standpoint, because we all want to be lifelong learners. Connor Grennan's podcast, AI Mindset, fantastic. I learned something new every single second from his podcast. There's so much out there if you want to just try to keep up with it. Podcasts are a great way to do it. Because I travel all the time now, tons of time for podcasts. Download podcasts on plane flights, listen to podcasts. Driving down wherever it is, listen to podcasts. That's a great way to get information.
First of all, I appreciate you mentioning it's a relationship business, because I recently interviewed Ed Walters, a Fast Case, now VLAX, and it's coming out next week. And the title of the podcast is Building Fast Case Through Relationships, Not Venture Funding. And
love it.
I think he said he went to, over a 15-year period, like 1,100 conferences in the early days, and he had one relationship at a time. And it doesn't happen overnight. So I appreciate that. And
I spent the first 10 years of my career as a practicing lawyer wearing a tie, saying, man, I just can't wait to get this tie off. And now, like, I literally spend almost probably every other day wearing a conference lanyard, thinking like, someday I'm going to take this conference lanyard off. It's always something around your neck, but it's a lot more fun when it's a conference one, because that's where you make those relationships. That's where you meet people. And that's every good opportunity that I've had to be first to work with one of these cool startups or have a great opportunity is because of a relationship with either the people who created the startup or someone who said, this is a perfect one for you, Evan. I want you to reach out to them. I'm going to have them connect you. It's all about relationships. Then you have to have good instincts as to which ones you want to work with and which ones are the most ROI for your firm and so on. But everything about this is a relationship. It's a relationship business.
Were you at the Legal Tech Hub Summit in New York Law School where Connor spoke? So we probably walked by each other like 17.
You cut in front of me 4 times to get a meal, but that was okay because I figured at some point we'd meet and it'd be okay.
That's so funny. It is a small world in a weird way. I was already a big fan of his before that summit. It's actually one of the reasons I wanted to go. I saw her email. I'm like, oh, and then I went to New York Law School actually. So I'm like, this is my home. Yeah. And so I went and I saw him speak, and I was like, he talked about the course he has, the AI course. And I'm like, you know what? I'll buy it. So it was like $300 and 5 hours to go through it. And it was transformative actually. And he actually spoke with my leadership team after that. And I'm talking to him. Hopefully he's so freaking busy. I'm hoping to get him as a future guest on Lawyers Who Learn because of all that he does. But you talk about the podcast, just his LinkedIn post. I look at them and I'm like, it's actually energizing, but also overwhelming because it's like, you would have to like just stop your day job to keep up with everything that's happening right now. And you mentioned podcasts, you mentioned conferences. Are you also waking up earlier? Like, when are you actually doing the deep reading of, okay, this is actually a good segue to this University of Oxford study. Maybe it is, but I'll use it anyway as a segue because I'm like, I'm going to be prepared for this podcast. I'm going to read this thing. I go to print it out or download it.
70 pages.
60 pages.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, I wonder if Evan read it because he's part of it. And then I was like, all right, let me do a lazy prompt and get the findings. But let's start with that. Are you reading? Did you read that? But are you reading things like that all the time and going through that? Or are you using ChatGPT like I did to help summarize things to get through it?
Yeah. So that was a fun one because that's one of the ones where I was on the plane when the study broke. It was released, it's in peer review now, but I got it emailed to me. It was a 70-page PDF. So I quickly said, okay, I want to know what the results were, whether it was good, whether it was not good, because I'm not seeing the results before it comes out. It's an actual official study. And a dozen or so of my attorneys were interviewed at length and so on. So I wanted to make sure it said something good. So I put that one through an LLM and I asked it questions. And I said, let me have the results. What are the takeaways for the lawyers? Did it make the lawyers, was it favorable? Was it critical? I asked a whole bunch of questions. And in a minute and a half, I got my answers. The answers were great. It was a very great study and showed that lawyers who are really focused on using these tools and try these tools out become really good at them and so on. But then I read the whole thing because you still need to be the human in the loop and do your due diligence. But it was so great to get a quick preview while I was on the plane, took a pause from my podcast and went to review that. But there's no way that a human being can keep up with everything. It's just, there's way too much stuff going on. To your point, there could be a podcast summarizing Connor's podcasts, and that could fill up a full day of listening to those for a week. There's too much. I can't wake up at 4 a.m. I'm not one of those people. I know there are a lot of early risers out there that do their cold plunge and they're off and wired. But I have to fit it in when I have opportunities. And that might be, my days are filled with 30-minute calls, but I might have 30 minutes here where I can go and there's not something else I have to work on. I can go and read some articles. I'll read certain things every morning. Because I travel a lot, I do have some time when there might not be Wi-Fi or cell service and I can go and catch up with these things. But that's something that I think human beings in general are challenged with. And there probably will be case studies and books and over the years saying, man, those people from 2023 to 2029, people really didn't figure out how to keep up with everything. But now we have some great way to do it. We're all trying the best.
We'll be ruled by our AI lords. So.
Maybe. But I think the lifelong learners are people who are at least going to be better at it because they've been good at reading and analyzing and distilling and getting to the heart of things pretty quickly, getting rid of the noise and finding ways to focus on things, having curiosity to know whether robots are doing a good job or not a good job at the summarizing. So I think there are a lot of benefits to the type of people that we are and the way our brains are wired. Fortunately, those of us who were happy sitting in a room reading books are going to be better in a world where we need to go and read things and figure out quickly whether it did a good job or not. And how can we take it from there? And what are the gaps in what it did versus just trusting something that we see as being the gospel. The curiosity, I think, is a helpful thing for people struggling with all of the stuff that's going on.
Can I ask you, are you, on a personal side, with all this going on, how are you taking care of your mental health and your mental well-being and your physical health? Because like you said, you need your sleep, You need to eat well, you need to be in good mindset. Is there anything you can share that's helped you with probably the busiest 2 years of your professional career?
No, I love that question, the fact that it's important enough for you to ask it. So thanks for asking it. I think I'm a work in progress. I think a lot of us are, just because there's so much work to be done now, more than ever before. The one thing I would say is I'm happiest. The easiest way to get through the stress and to get through all this is to find hobbies and activities that require you to put your phone away. I think I could spend 24 hours a day on my phone doing work or work adjacent or keeping up with developments or whatever, if you let it, because there's always enough work to fill up a day. So my biggest hobby is soccer. I play soccer, I coach soccer. When I'm on the soccer field, I can't carry a cell phone around. Most other activities, if you're skiing, you could be on the chairlift, looking at your phone in between the lifts, the runs and everything, and people are doing that. If you're jogging, they have their phone and they get a buzz and they look at it, or they hear their text messages through their AirPods. When you're playing soccer, you're not carrying a phone, you're not getting your messages. Find some sort of a hobby that completely disconnects you from electricity. That to me has been a big one. Sometimes mindfulness before sleeping, that helps. Things like the Calm app are good. But I think everyone needs to figure out what works for them. For me, it's trying to find times when you're not connected at all. Finding time with your kids, with your family, that's huge also. And the biggest thing for me is keeping the phone away from the dinner table, keeping the phone away from whatever, just because work is always there. And it's a challenge to put it away.
No, I call it the digital sunset before you go to bed. I can't tell you, I'm with you. There's times when because I spend a lot of time in self-help and reading books on that. And that's a key component of it. And when I leave my phone in a room and I go to a different room in my house and I'm with my family and they're like, oh, can you tell me what's going on? Look this up. I'm like, I don't have my phone on me.
Yeah.
And the happiness factor starts to go up, or like stupid things. Like if you're in the bathroom and you're shaving and you see a buzz and you go to check it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And of course, as men, I'm sure you've seen it all the time and maybe you're guilty of it. I can't tell you 98% of the time you're in the bathroom, guys at urinals looking at their phone. I'm like, guys, come on, put it away. But you said coaching. Who are you coaching?
I've coached my son. I've coached both my son's soccer teams since they were little kids. They then went to play travel soccer. I coached those teams, then club soccer, and
How
I
old are
coached
they
those
now?
teams. So I have one now who's in college, who's still playing soccer, which is wonderful. And I have another one who's a junior in high school who's playing on a club team. And I'm still coaching. I'm an assistant coach on that team because we have professional trainers, not Cayman Innovation folks as the exclusive ones. But love it. It's wonderful helping kids be better at what they do and offering
Wow.
whatever you can.
I have juniors, twins who are juniors in high school. So offline, we could probably talk all about
Definitely.
this
We're
college
basically the same
process.
person, we've realized during this talk. We go to the same places, we have the same kids, and good times.
Look, we're lifelong learning attracts a lot of the same
That's
attendance.
it.
With the last couple of minutes, normally I start off a podcast with this question. I didn't with you because I like to experiment and I don't want to ask the same things all the time. And I want to start it. And generally with my other podcasts, we went more into somebody's personal history. And today I want to experiment by going more into what you're doing at your firm. And I think actually I liked it. It went really well. There's a lot of deep things to go through, but the question that's really, and now I'm building it up too much, but it's led to a really interesting conversation was I start off with this question. Especially you talk a lot, you do a lot of podcasts. Is there anything that you wish people asked you when it comes to your learning and your growth and you as an individual that you never get to talk about it as much, that you wish you had a chance just to even talk about for a minute or two now versus just the normal stuff?
This isn't just sucking up to you, but I think the last question that you just asked about how do you deal with the stress of your job and things like that, I think people take it for granted that people that are successful don't deal with that. You asking that question out loud and having me have to think about it and talk about it, that's brilliant. And I think if everyone would ask that question and normalize the fact that people struggle with stress and anxiety and burnout and all of those things, whether you're a junior person at a firm or in the C-suite, that's a terrific thing to ask because we're all learning from each other. And some people might not say, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to leave my phone downstairs or in another room when I'm with my kids, or all of those things I think super valuable. And no one's ever asked me that. I've probably done 20 podcasts at this point and hundreds of presentations. No one's ever said, hey, outside of your day job, how do you deal with things? And I love that question.
Thank you. And that's fascinating to me because that's all I care about generally, because almost every other podcast is this, where you're like diving deep into something and you don't like to some degree. I'd rather start with what makes you tick as a person and then go into that. But sometimes you need to understand like these really cool things that you guys are working on. And it is very inspiring. Again, I've been in legal tech for 25 years. I built and run an online CLE company. I like to consider myself legal tech. We actually are launching a SaaS product that I would love to get your 2 cents offline about some of the things that we're doing, just because you got to talk to people, you got to share, you got to go on podcasts. And I'll share this just to the mental health and we can end here. I know you have a day job and a family and all these other things to get back to, is when I recently interviewed Ted about InfoDash, what was really heartwarming is he talked about how his business grew so much and with the past like 8 years and how it grew and he did all these things and he traveled so much. And then he talked about how he rebranded and he renamed and he got three other partners with him. And I was like, wow, that's a big shift. Why'd you do that? He's like, because mentally I was a wreck. My health, my weight was terrible. I wasn't at home. I wasn't doing well. And so he had to fix his mental health. And it was so funny because even I got caught up to this guy can do no wrong. Right. And then within a second, he just threw that in. And everybody has
and you didn't see Ted at Legal Week, right? Because it happened to coincide with Ted's kids' spring break. So he didn't go for the first time. So you have to figure out what makes you wildly successful in your job and wildly successful in your personal life, or at least as close as you can come to those things. And they're both very important parts of your life.
I was at spring break with my kids as well. And so like one of the things, yeah, so I'll leave it at that, but there's so much more we can talk, but hopefully I'm sure I'll see you in person more times now that I do that. Hopefully this time we can connect more, not only about legal tech, but more on mental health, because without that, it's hard to focus on your career as well. Yeah. Lots of great takeaways here. And I hope you share this with people at your firm. I'm just so impressed with what you've built there and how you move that forward. And it's really the way I look at this role. It's like an entrepreneurial role within a law firm. And cool. Good for you.
Well, thank you so much for giving
thanks,
me a
Evan.
chance to chat with you.
And thanks to everybody who's gotten this far. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.